I come from a long line of thrifters. My grandmother specifically is to this day still the biggest one in my family. She always buys everyone's Christmas gifts every year, from different yard sales, thrift shops, and hand-me-down stores from all around. I remember one year I opened up a purse she regifted me and found a tampon in it. Grandma, what the hell? Well, I just always want you to be prepared. She grinned, knowing full well that she just made it up on the spot. My grandmother's house was full of random collector's items, whether it be real gold jewelry or fake china plates, that she deems to be her most prized possessions that she saves for if the Pope ever comes to town. But there are some items she owns that I've always gotten the creeps about since I was a kid, and still do. When my parents would send me on a summer vacation to my grandparents' house, I would have to stay in their guest bedroom. It was cluttered with dusty antiques from thrift stores, like gas lamps and theater jewelry, as well as old sepia-toned photographs of my grandfather's buddies who were in the war with him. Although nothing was more terrifying and memorable than the portrait of the boy in the yellow raincoat. This boy that appeared to be 6 years old and wore what seemed to be a 19th century yellow raincoat. Those brown eyes of his felt like they were piercing your soul, coupled with a sour frown, as the rain looked as though it would endlessly drip along his face. Every time I looked at the painting, I could feel a tightness in my chest. I couldn't breathe. I would black out and find myself in another part of the house when I would wake up. I sensed something dark was in the room with me. It was only when I was out of the room that I felt free of whatever that was. Each night I spent there, I was horrified to go to sleep. Every night I would see glimpses of him. When I slept, I had night terrors. I've always known I had vivid dreams, but no, none like this before. One night, I went to bed in the hideous barn-themed wallpaper guest room, and as I started to fall asleep, his face flashed before my eyes. It was bloody, cut up, and tears flooded from his eyes as he looked at me. The crimson blood ran from his nose and eyes as he had been brutally beaten. His hair was knotted with mud and lacerations were laced along his head and neck. I shot awake and turned on the gas lamp beside me. Whoa, okay. It was just a bad dream. I see him all the time because that stupid painting is in the room. So I tried to fall back asleep. Seconds later, boom. He's there again, and he stays, just painfully staring at me. I was frozen. I tried to wake up, but I couldn't. A dark figure I couldn't make out flew over me, and thrust all of its weight onto my body as it grabs my neck and chokes me. While I attempted to claw at it to gasp what I believed to be my last breath of air, scenes flashed before my eyes. Almost like what you would assume your life looks like when you're about to die. It's pouring rain and the clouds are ominous and almost obsidian. I couldn't see far through the raindrops and fog, but I saw a cobble road in London. It's near a bridge over a river. The boy is now standing atop the bridge in his blood-splattered and swampy raincoat. He was staring right at me still. He's too far away for me to run to, and I couldn't scream because his force still had pressure on me. That felt like hands reaching within my rib cage and suffocating my lungs while marrying my throat. Suddenly, the dark figure rushed to the bridge and violently pushed him in. I heard a faint whisper, "Charlie," and a child's cry as a splash gushed against the water and onto the rocks below. The sound echoed in my head until I jolted awake. My head was throbbing. I couldn't think straight. I was disoriented and it was hard for me to see. I squinted my eyes to see it was daytime. There are no clouds. There is no rain. Just sunshine. I was in bed the whole time. But how could something feel so real? But yet it was a dream? I stared at the wall where the painting should have been, but wasn't. It was gone. I scrambled to get up to find it, but was stopped in my tracks by a numbing chill that made every hair on my body stand on end. The room was still. The disembodied whisper came to me again. Charlie. My grandmother had passed away just 2 months ago. I do miss her, and by being the only blood relative she actually liked, she gave it to me. The housing market is a mess, and I wasn't going to pass on the opportunity to inherit a whole house with a decent plot of land. It had been passed down for hundreds of years, and despite being big, it was in suboptimal conditions. I didn't mind a bit of a fixer-upper, so I decided to take some of my savings and try to salvage some of the rotting walls, and maybe get a metal roof put in. The inside of the house was dated with furniture that had been ripped and torn from ages gone by. I was going to reinvent the place to fit the modern era anyway. The only thing I wanted to keep was my grandmother's porcelain doll collection. She had at least 12 of them scattered through the house, each one with a distinct look. As a kid, I always found them to be off-putting, like they were alive and watching me. As I got older, I fell out of childish superstitions and began to view them as testaments to the house's age. The oldest doll we had was made shortly before the first property owner died, and a new one is made every generation, so my grandmother once told me. Fast forward about a month into settling into the house, I found something odd while moving old furniture. There was a chest made of tan unpainted wood with a key next to it. I visited my grandmother's house often and never saw this box before. I took the key and opened it, hoping to find a note from my grandmother. What I found instead was a doll, but not like any I ever saw in the house. It had a blue and white ballroom dress with a blonde ponytail, and beneath her was a small note with the doll's name, Luna, my grandmother's name. I put the doll back where I found it, and went on moving old furniture out. About another week passed when my father decided to show up to the house. I wasn't exactly thrilled to see him. He had anger issues and beat me and my mother when I was a child. "I'm not interested in having a beer with you, old man. What do you want?" I said with venom in my voice. "First of all, I want you to show a little respect to your father. And 2, I want you to sell this house." He must have been drunk again to think I would sell this house. This house is mine. I'm caretaking it, so you can screw off. He gave me a look. "Me and your mother need the retirement money, so I'm going to come back with my attorneys and see whose house it really is. But before I go, you got a bathroom I can use?" I just wanted him to leave. "Upstairs." He walked upstairs and I went to the kitchen to pacify myself with a few drinks. That's when I heard a scream followed by a tumbling down the stairs. When I went to investigate it, I found my father dead at the bottom of the stairs with his neck twisted, and at the top of the stairs was a doll, standing straight up. My head began to spin a little with the thought of the implications. Either way, I knew I needed to act fast. We were fairly out of the way with the house, but not cut off from society. It would be a matter of time before Mom starts to come knocking. I got to work hiding the body and driving his car further into the deep meadows where it would be abandoned and hopefully never found. If Mom came around, I would tell her that he never showed up to my house and maybe she'll believe that he just left her. When I got back inside, I saw that the doll with the summer yellow clothes that stood atop the stairs was gone. Somehow, she had returned to her original place. These dolls were starting to creep me the hell out. I decided that eventually I would put them in a box and leave them in another room. I had to change my course of action. About a week ago, I woke up to the sound of a large crash in the kitchen and shot out of bed. I ran downstairs and into the kitchen to see a drawer out of place with silverware all over. And when I heard a yell from the other room, I ran into a man with a crowbar, a flashlight, and a gun. He was planning to rob the place. More disturbing and worthy of attention were the knives in his body. The knives were in his chest, back, and arms. He fell to the ground and died. And that's when I noticed we were surrounded by dolls. What I saw on the wall next to me made my heart stop for a moment, as my world froze in fear and terror, written in blood on the white walls. "Don't put us away. Come join us." I fainted. When I woke up, I was in my bed and found 2 new books on my nightstand. The first one was a guide on how to make porcelain dolls, old and new methods. The second was an occult book on secrets of transferring one's soul to an object to gain immortality. I don't think these dolls will let me leave, so I decided that I'm going to will my house to my mother. I will be saying hi to my grandmother and other ancestors, and might get a chance to be with my mom without my dad.